Welcome to the Relevance Report, where we explore the relevant stories that are shaping our world today. I'm Brooke Mayer, your host this week. On today's show, a nurse practitioner talks about her work to help children transition to adult healthcare. Next, we'll hear from a hockey lines person about how officiating has changed his life. And later, a sports photographer talks about how his career is one of the most fulfilling careers people can pursue, despite the instability. Healthcare can be challenging to navigate, but it can be especially daunting when children have to make the switch from pediatric to adult healthcare. Karen Johnston, a nurse practitioner at the Stollery Hospital, had a hand in creating the AHS website, Well On Your Way. This website aims to make this transition as easy as possible for young adults, parents, and healthcare providers. Kelsey Howlett sat down with Karen Johnston.
You worked with AHS on a website called Well On Your Way in order to help with this transition. Can you tell me a little bit about what that was like?
That was an amazing thing to be able to do. So Calgary already had developed part of a website. And so what I had suggested is we did an Alberta AHS Well On Your Way website. And Calgary, Deb Thule was the coordinator there, was very generous with her expertise and what she had produced. So we have a section for youth and young adults, a section for parents, and a section for healthcare providers. And I think what people don't realize is that if you're going to go to university, you can get accommodations if you have any kind of problems that gets in the way of you being able to learn and be successful. So we set this up as here's all the links that will take you to different universities, different places where you can get more advanced education, and here's how you can get some support for whatever you need. There's also information on sexual health, because if you're in a wheelchair and you're exploring your sexuality, you may not be able to do some of the positions. And actually, there are places you can go to that will talk to you about your sexual health and how you can be successful no matter what your disability. And the same with driving. But even for an adolescent, just going into university for the first time, sometimes people experience mental health issues and there's support out there. So it tries to cover many avenues of this is driving, this is university, this is sexuality, this is what do you want, and here's the information.
What was your role in the creation?
I was considered a content expert. So we looked at all the different areas, and then we did a lot of the writing as well. And then we would send that document to parents. We had actually a couple of groups at the Stollery and Alberta Children's Hospital who would provide leadership as an adolescent and help review things that were coming out. So they would actually tell us what was wrong or the words we're saying wasn't right for that kind of generation. And so we also would send it out to healthcare experts to edit. So it was not a professional program. It was based on the users, the content experts, and whoever else might have something to say about these areas.
When people go to the website, what do you hope they take away from it?
Well, if you are seeing a healthcare provider, doctor, nurse practitioner, dietitian, when you go into a clinic, you are there for an agenda. So if you have diabetes, it's there to talk about it. One of the things that's very difficult is to fit in these conversations with families about things like transition, about school and accommodations. So what I'm hoping is that this website will spread and that people will look at it and be able to go back to their healthcare provider and say, I saw this on the website and I'm 19 years old, I'm thinking about my future, and can I have babies, or what is my risk if I have a healthcare condition? So that you are the prompter of getting that information from a healthcare provider rather than waiting for a healthcare provider to give it to them because of this limitation of time.
What advice would you give to either young adults or parents who are at that stage going through the transition from pediatric healthcare to adult healthcare?
That's a great question. Go to the website, because on there, if you go to the questionnaires that we have set up, everything that we have put in there, if you have a question about school, you click on it and it will take you right to the Alberta government schools across Alberta so that you can get the information you want. If you have questions about travel and you have a chronic disease, you click on it, it takes you to the Canada website where it gives you all the information you should know about traveling if you have a healthcare condition. So it gives you whatever you want in a very easy way of getting to the information without having to review everything. We're here to support our children and adolescents. So what they can do, allow them to do it, but be there. So I always talk about kids like a loaf of bread. You know, they're in the oven, they're looking golden brown, they smell great. If you take them out too early and cut into them, they're ooey and gooey. You've just wrecked your loaf of bread. So part of it is just looking and realizing, yeah, it's supposed to only take 25 minutes, but it's not done. So support your kids, take back responsibility if they're burning out, and just allow them to be successful over time. And unfortunately, parents also burn out, and sometimes they want to give all that responsibility too early, and then the kids burn out. So be a family, everybody take part.
Referees and linesmen aren't always the most popular people on the ice, but for Robert Preville, the opportunity to be a linesman has been life-changing. For the official from the British Columbia Hockey League, it has afforded him a healthy lifestyle whilst allowing him to get a post-secondary education. Izzy Crozier had the chance to interview him about his passion for officiating.
How did you become an official for the leagues that you participate in?
I started out officiating in my hometown when I was 12 years old, and then it was kind of just a way to skate extra on the weekends, make a little cash, and that was kind of how it started. And then I think when I was 16, I got the opportunity to go to a bigger town with a little bit more higher level hockey, and I got watched by somebody that works in the Alberta Junior Hockey League there. And he asked me afterwards, he's like, have you ever thought of, maybe pursuing officiating or try to see how far you can go with it? I had never really thought about it before then. And then I was like, well, I don't know. He's like, well, you're pretty good, so maybe you should try to pursue it a little bit. So then he worked with me throughout that season and the next season, getting me into some higher level stuff, mentoring me. And then after that, he moved to Spruce Grove the same year that I moved to Edmonton. He put me in contact with all the right people in Edmonton to continue on with that. And then it's kind of just kept going from there. Just hard work, dedicating a lot of time to it. When we're not in the rink or on the ice, we're in the gym, we're working on our skating, we're working on rule knowledge, all that kind of stuff. We're reviewing speed, and that's kind of how I got into it, kind of how I started.
How has this impacted the way that you lead your life both on and off the ice?
Off the ice, a lot of our time gets built around our officiating schedule. So when it comes to taking, even just at MacEwan, taking classes, when we're in the gym, how we eat, what our workouts look like, just everything is kind of built around officiating when you get to a high level. And it's given me the opportunity to live a healthy lifestyle where fitness is important, healthy eating is important. It's allowed me to make most of my friends are through officiating. I've met people from as far as Seattle and as far as Sweden and Finland and Australia, Montreal, like everywhere across the country. So it's basically allowed me to make most of my friends, live a healthy lifestyle, and pursue an education, because I don't think that without officiating and having that goal, where I was forced to move, like if I wanted to continue on with officiating, there really wasn't any opportunities in my hometown. So I think it's basically also given me the opportunity to pursue a post-secondary education as well.
Do you have any stories of how you have impacted, say, the hockey community within Edmonton?
Yeah, so every year there's Edmonton Minor Hockey Week, and during this week the officials are not paid, so they basically count on us to volunteer our time to officiate these games and give back to all of, just by officiating these games. I've also officiated in a couple of charity games. My hometown has done Battle of the Badges. That's a big thing here in the city as well, where the fire department plays our RCMP detachment, and it's a fundraiser. They raise money for the food bank. I've also a lot of mentoring. We are, as high performance officials, we are forced to, well, we're not forced to, but we're very strongly encouraged to get out and do supervisions on young up and coming officials, whether it's first year, second year. They're getting into that lower level U15, U18 level as well. So there's a lot of giving back in that regard to both officials and just the game in general, because I think that as officials, as players, as coaches, we kind of take for granted what the game has given us.
What's it like to be a sports photographer? I sat down with Alexander Patton, who's been pursuing a career in sports photography for around a decade. He says it's a very competitive field, but his love for the medium keeps him going. Here's my conversation with Alexander about his career in sports photography.
Hi, my name's Alexander Patton. I'm a sports photographer for the Spruce Grove Saints, as well as I do freelance photography for sports and news.
So you've covered many sports for years now. Which sport has provided the most stable work?
Hockey in general is one that I photograph the most. So I've done the Spruce Grove Saints, I've done a University of Alberta hockey, a few other teams, as well as doing some minor hockey.
And so do you think there's a specific aspect of why you're more into hockey?
I think really it's because that's what my passion is, so that's what I go seeking. The sports market for photography is very competitive and very full of people, so it's hard to find jobs, especially in the Edmonton area. Now, for Spruce Grove Saints have been a stable place for me, and that's where I get a lot of my work from, so yeah, I tend to stay there.
So kind of getting into that difficulty of being a sports photographer, how do you overcome that competitiveness, because it is such a competitive field?
Yeah, you're always just looking for a way that you can one-up other people. And so essentially finding new ways to do things, new photographic techniques, new ways to improve on something that you've done before. For instance, with the Spruce Grove Saints, we found a way this year to do live photos during the game, whereas before I would have to run up between periods and load the photos. Now we're able to load them directly during the game and put them on social media and everything.
So is it just kind of the idea of going with like advancing technologies and seeing what changes every year and going along with that and being the best photographer that you can be?
Definitely, I'd say so. Like, photography itself is, everybody has a camera these days. So that makes it a bit harder as well. Everybody has a phone in their pocket and thinks that they can be a photographer. Now, you'll see difference in quality, especially in sports. I have $7,000 or so of gear at a game, and you have to invest in that to be able to get the good photos. So, but with the industry the way it is, you're always, and the way that video is taking over in a lot of ways, you're always looking for a way to advance and grow while still being passionate about it and being where you want to be.
Talking about that, how do you deal with, everybody has a camera now, everybody has a phone, anybody can take a video. How do you deal with A, that idea of anybody can take a photo, and B, everybody has the ability to take a photo?
Definitely. Like, one thing that I remember is that, yeah, everybody has a camera, but for the types of cameras that are on phones are still not at the quality yet where you can really take great sports photos. So I have an advantage in that, where I can take a good action shot, a very good shot in the dark, etc., from the other side of the glass going across the ice and everything, whereas the zoom on the camera phones and stuff are just not there and everything. And it's really just also like the difference between amateur photo and a professional photographer. Like, I spend a lot of time finding my craft and everything. So you get what you pay for, essentially. If you want those professional photos, sometimes you have to hire someone who does this.
And so going into more what you like and dislike about your career, what are your favorite things about what you do, and what are your least favorite things about you do? Even going into like the stability of the job, competitiveness of it, what are your perspectives on the job?
Yeah, like I love being at sports and getting to go to different sports and activities. And like this year, of course, I do hockey and I love being at the rink. It's like a family, especially with the Spruce Grove Saints. But I also this year got to do rodeo for the first time, or bull riding, sorry. And that was really cool. That's something I never expected to be able to do. I've done championship volleyball, very hard for photography, very fast-paced sport, very hard to get great shots. So that was a new challenge for me. Rugby, one of my favorite sports, so I get to go to the rugby field and just go. You get the best seats in the house, like you're right on the course and everything, and you just get to go out there and see the whole game through the little lens of your camera, but it makes it a lot fun. For things that I don't like, sometimes it can be quite tiring. Like a hockey game, 3 hours holding a long lens and everything, it can get quite tiresome sometimes. And also you're covering sports whether they win or lose, and sometimes it really sucks when you're on a losing streak or something and you still have to be there photographing the game, and sometimes you think like nobody cares about these photos when it's a losing game, so why am I doing this kind of thing? But you have to be able to cover those and everything. For those who want to try this, get out there, have some fun with it. The biggest thing is don't think of it as a job all the time. Try to have fun with it and make sure it's something you like to do and not just something you have to do.
And now it's time for our question of the week. We asked, what gets you through those winter blues?
Well, I think the best thing I can do is like keep a routine, like make sure that I wake up at the same time every day, even if it's dark outside. Try to like get my brain going right away when I wake up. I feel like waking up is probably one of the hardest things to do. And then keeping exercise like is really important to me. So like, trying my best to like go places to exercise, not even just doing like home workouts, like getting out, talking to friends, seeing friends, doing all that kind of stuff. I think that's like kind of the only way, even when you don't want to.
What gets me through the winter is sports. I do wheelchair curling, so that helps me kind of go through this cold spurts, even though I am cold on the ice. It's a little bit warmer than outside, especially minus 40. And friends, family, yeah.
This is my first winter here, so it's pretty hard to get through it. But honestly, getting busy day-to-day life, it's kind of get through everything for me, because I usually come to university at 6 a.m. So 6 to 6, I have a lot of things to do, and when I go home, I have a lot of things to do as well. So getting busy in the day kind of makes me forget about how cold outside, and as long as I can, I'll be try to be inside. But yeah.
Thanks for joining us on the Relevance Report. This week's episode was produced by Izzy Crozier. The show was edited by Kelsey Howlett. The show's supervising producer is Sheena Rossiter. Additional studio supervision by Sasha Stanojevic. This episode was produced as part of the BCSC 325 Radio News and Documentaries class in the winter 2025 semester. The course is part of the Bachelor of Communication Studies program in the Department of Communication at MacEwan University. The show was edited and produced out of the MacEwan Media Production Studio. Our theme music is called Buzzing by Kaylee Lambert. Logo design for this podcast is by Sasha Stanojevic. And I'm Brooke Mayer, your host for this week's episode. This podcast was recorded on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta, Districts 9, 10, and 11 within the historical North Saskatchewan River Territory. Don't forget to subscribe to the Relevance Report on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you heard, please leave us a review and rating. It really helps people find the show. Please join us again next week when we report the relevant stories that are shaping our world.